Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at a thinker who, well, maybe isn't on everyone's coffee table, but definitely caused some ripples. Georges Sorel.
That's right. We've been digging into a conversation with an AI about him, exploring these really complex and, frankly, sometimes unsettling ideas he had about social change, violence, myth.
And for you listening in, if you're looking to get your head around big ideas quickly, get those aha moments without wading through endless academic text, Sorel is, well, he's something.
Definitely. His perspectives, yeah, they're controversial, no doubt about it, but they offer some genuinely surprising angles on revolutionary thinking.
So let's dive in.
Okay, so Georges Sorel, born mid-1800s, died early 1900s. He actually started as an engineer, believe it or not, before switching to political philosophy.
Well, an engineer. Huh?
Yeah, and what hits you straight away is just how widely his ideas spread.
Exactly. Our AI discussion really brought that home. His big work, Reflections on Violence, it was like a touchstone for, well, almost everyone, wasn't it? Anarcho-syndicalists, Marxists of various stripes.
All the way over to Italian fascists like Mussolini, even someone like Antonio Gramsci on the left. It's kind of baffling.
How does one thinker manage that kind of reach across the spectrum?
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? His core idea, the one he hammered home in Reflections on Violence, was about the power, the absolute necessity of myths to drive social change.
Okay, but crucially, when Sorel says myth, he doesn't just mean something that's like made up or false.
Exactly, that's key. For Sorel, myths were these incredibly potent emotional narratives. He called them block images.
Block images.
Yeah, images that just grab the collective mind, and they propel people towards radical action. Think powerful symbols, visions of the future. They inspire this intense commitment.
Almost regardless of whether they're practically achievable.
Precisely. He famously used the syndicalist idea of the general strike as an example. This idea of a total shutdown, society collapsing, then rebirth.
Or Marx's vision of the huge cataclysmic proletarian revolution.
Right. Those were his prime examples.
So the power wasn't in the logistics of whether a general strike could actually shut down every single thing.
No, no.
It was the image, that picture of the ultimate showdown, firing up the working class.
You got it. Sorel literally said, it matters little whether the general strike is a partial reality or simply a product of popular imagination. Its strength was how it could infuse with an intense life all the details presented to consciousness.
Wow. So it gives this gut feeling, this visceral sense of the future that just arguing rationally can't match.
Exactly. And you see this pattern, right? This powerful, unifying story, even if not literally true. Think about early Christian stories of salvation or nationalist myths about a glorious past. They tap into the same emotional wellspring.
Okay, this naturally leads us to the really controversial part, his views on violence.
Indeed. Sorel didn't just see violence as, an unfortunate byproduct of revolution. He actually argued, controversially, that proletarian violence, when it was a pure expression of the class struggle,
Could be what?
could be a very fine and heroic thing. He even suggested it could sort of rescue the world from what he saw as bourgeois decay, morally regenerate.
Fine and heroic. That's pretty jarring compared to how most view violence.
It really is. For him, this wasn't about winning specific political goals or getting material stuff. It was more about keeping the revolutionary spirit pure, undiluted.
Preventing compromise and bureaucracy from setting in.
Exactly. Almost like a cleansing fire. Now, it's important to get this right. When he talks about moral regeneration, he isn't advocating for, pointless cruelty.
Right.
His argument, however problematic we find it now, came from this belief that bourgeois society was decadent, compromising, and it was eroding the real revolutionary drive. Only this stark, uncompromising conflict could shock society out of it.
Our AI chat also brought up how Sorel's ideas seem to echo or maybe foreshadow parts of the Russian Revolution. What's the link there?
Yeah, that's fascinating. You see the resonance, don't you? Sorel's focus on a powerful myth, the potential of violence, it lines up quite disturbingly with Bolshevik strategies.
They certainly use strong imagery and promises to fuel their revolution.
Absolutely. And their willingness to use revolutionary terror. Well, it does have uncomfortable parallels with Sorel's ideas about violence as this regenerative force.
And wasn't there also a point about Sorel initially backing the Bolsheviks, but then later seeming to admire Mussolini? That feels like a massive contradiction.
It really highlights the the tangles and inconsistencies in his thought, doesn't it? He seemed drawn to movements left or right. It didn't matter so much, that just showed dynamism.
A rejection of what he saw as weak liberal democracy.
Precisely. He liked those who grabbed onto a strong, unifying myth and weren't afraid to act decisively, even violently. It's this fluidity that makes him so hard to pin down, so divisive.
So, like, the anarcho-syndicalists picked up on the general strike idea?
While early fascists loved his emphasis on national myths and kicking liberal democracy to the curb, everyone took what they wanted, it seems.
Okay, so bringing this back to our listeners' reflections. How do Sorel's ideas connect with their thoughts about myths in Western history, and how those myths might actually control people?
That's a really sharp observation from the listener. Seeing Western history as this clash of competing myths and noticing they often inspire not heroism, but enslaved adherence to interests against one's own.
Wow, enslaved adherence. That's powerful.
It really is, and it links directly into critical theories about how dominant stories keep power structures in place.
Yeah, and it connects to that idea you mentioned about how these myths get passed down almost unconsciously, parent to child, perpetuating these limiting beliefs generation after generation.
Exactly. The discussion touched on how parents, maybe out of fear disguised as love, can accidentally pass on these controlling narratives.
Which then leads to the listener's own hesitation about having children, right? That feeling that the potential difficulties, the risk of passing on these cycles might outweigh the good.
It reflects the sheer weight of that realization,
Yeah.
yeah. The fear of continuing these potentially damaging patterns.
And that brought up another really compelling point. The need for a society that isn't built on, as the listener put it, enslaving lies. And how that ties into complex issues like population, sustainability, quality of life. The question being, why bring more people into a system based on these controlling myths anyway?
Precisely. The idea that maybe a truly authentic civilization needs to rethink its scale, rethink what a high standard of living even means, maybe shifting away from just consuming more stuff towards actual well-being.
And suggesting that maybe those who benefit most now, the rich, broadly speaking, need to see that endless consumption isn't the answer and focus on lifting everyone's basic quality of life.
Yeah, acknowledging the diminishing returns of excessive consumption for them and the huge potential gains from prioritizing a better baseline for all.
But, as the listener rightly pointed out, just waiting for those in power to make these big changes. Well, it feels like a long shot, doesn't it, given their vested interest?
That's the fundamental tension, isn't it? You can hope some will see the light, recognize the need for a fairer, more sustainable world. But history kind of suggests big shifts usually need pressure from lots of places, not just relying on the goodwill of the elite.
So, okay, let's try and pull this all together. What are the core takeaways from this deep dive into George Sorel?
Well, fundamentally, Sorel highlighted the incredible power of myth, not as falsehood, remember, but as this vital engine for social change.
And his controversial take on violence, seeing it in a revolutionary context as potentially moral, even regenerative.
Right, with the myth of the general strike being his classic example of that kind of mobilizing story.
Even though he's not a household name today, his influence was surprisingly huge, hitting both left and right. Figures like Mussolini, Gramsci, quite the mix.
Exactly. Which, of course, leads straight back to the ongoing debate about him. Was he this profound thinker who really understood the non-rational forces shaping society?
Or was he a dangerous intellectual whose ideas about myth and violence kind of paved the way for some truly awful parts of the 20th century?
That's the question that hangs over him.
And thinking about our listener again, this whole exploration connects so directly with our own thoughts, the power of societal myths, how they get passed down through families, and those deep concerns about bringing children into this world.
Yeah, and that deeper yearning for a society based on truth, not manipulation. Plus, the complex links between how many of us there are, the planet's health, and what a truly good life looks like for everyone.
So as we wrap up this look into Sorel and how his ideas resonate with our listeners' really profound reflections, here's something to think about. Considering Sorel's stress on the power of myth, true or not, and your own thinking about how societal myths can control us, what myths are shaping your understanding right now, your world, your place in it?
And are those myths ultimately setting you free or holding you back?
A powerful question.